I love listening to people who are very successful in different areas and they're able to translate that success into yet other areas. So today, Patrick Parker, former athlete, who then went on to start and run 5 different companies, all making revenue of over $1 million each. So check this out on what to do when you want to translate principles into greater success.
Welcome to Advance with Mike Acker, the podcast designed to help entrepreneurs, business leaders, and professionals alike break through barriers by improving their practical leadership skills and increasing confidence in speaking. Your host is a best-selling author, executive coach, and founder of the Advance Public Speaking School and Advantage Publishing Group, 2 companies dedicated to providing an edge for leaders. Find out more about Mike at mikeacker.com. Now here's your host, Mike Acker.
Patrick, thank you so much for being on the program with me today. I'm looking forward to talking with you.
Absolutely, Mike. Thanks for having me.
So you were an athlete through growing up and then really went big time and had some big dreams. And then you went into leadership. But tell us a little bit about your athletic journey and then some of the things that have taught you about leadership.
Yeah. So growing up, my father was a college All-American. So basketball was something that was always in the cards for me.
Yeah.
I guess like a lot of kids, I always had the dream of growing up, becoming a professional athlete and just continuing to do what I love to make a living out of it. In my junior year, though, I went up to dunk in a practice, came down and landed on somebody's foot and basically shredded my knee. So it was a long recovery process. And during that time, it just didn't make sense to continue. So I chose another route.
See, I always had the dream of being the next Bo Jackson.
Yes.
And that was the guy I worshipped him. I had 500 plus cards of his. I didn't realize
a lot of money nowadays.
I have them still. So what did that teach you about leadership now that you're into this business space?
Well, I think everything from athletics transitions into leadership. Everything from being coached to the ability to encourage and lift up teammates, to dedication and consistency and hard work and developing your personal skills. All that just translates very nicely into leadership. And so, going from being a player to still being involved with athletics and becoming a coach and helping other people develop their skill sets is exactly what leadership is about. And so it was very easy for me to transition into a leadership role because I was so used to performing at a high level, for teaching other people how to grow their skill sets. And that's where we're at today.
I think that's fantastic. One of the things I want to work with my son is that hard work and dedication. Again and again, we ask, if you want to get good at something, what do you do? And he says, you got to do it again and again. He's 7 years old. Right? We're also teaching him, if you want money, where do you go? And he goes, and the answer is go to work. So good things to learn in sports. Well, that's a little interesting aspect. We'll weave that into the business here a little bit more. We'll talk about it, but talk to us first of all. Who are you to speak to us on the subject of leadership? Who are you to speak to us on the topic of really successful company revenue building leadership?
Sure. So over the last 5 years, Mike, I've built out 5 different software companies. 2 of those are now venture backed. All of those are now generating over $1 million in annual revenues. And I basically started out everything as a side hustle, like so many different people, and was fortunate enough to have enough success to where my side gig ultimately became my main gig and gave me the capital that I needed to continue growing and expanding. So I built a staffing company first, scaled it to $1 million in revenue, took the 30% that I was profiting from that, launched a software company, grew that to $3.5 million in revenue. From there, operating under what's called a studio model, where when my developers are rolling off of client projects, they come and work on our products. So we were lucky enough to take several of those to market, and we're able to find some traction and continue to grow and scale them out. So I've got a lot of experience in rapidly testing the market and launching products and ultimately scaling them to find or to attain meaningful revenue.
What I love is for all of our listeners here, a lot of the people that are tuning in right now and they're watching this, they're listening to this as a driving. First of all, thank you for doing this. Thank you for being part of Advance. And as you're going through this, I know a lot of you are in the tech space, and I know a lot of people have ideas of side jobs and ideas of something that they might want to do at some point in time. So they resonate with what you're talking about here, and they're wanting to advance their careers. So whether you stay in or whether you get out, you're going to get some great things that you're going to pick up right here from Patrick, especially if you're thinking, hey, I want to get out and do something, and you're in that software space. Really tune in and then look up Patrick. And I know he's launching a podcast we'll talk about later as well. First of all, for all of the leaders that are listening right here, all of a sudden when you say you manage 5 different companies and their revenues all over $1 million, there's instantly everybody's thinking, shoot, I'm having a hard time managing 8 people, 10 people, 15 people. I'm having a hard time managing myself. So what do I do? And what have you learned in managing 5 different companies? And I would expect them to compete for your attention. How are you
100%.
managing that?
Yeah, I'm a master of prioritizing my time. That's the first thing. Being extremely intentional and focused when I'm working within those companies. And basically, I have something on my side that I call a hit list, right? And that hit list is not a list of names that I'm looking to scratch off. That is the priorities that I have for the next day. I do this every night, that will ultimately move the needle for my businesses. The things that have to be done in order for everything to continue moving forward. And just for everyone else that's looking at starting, one of my favorite quotes is from Theodore Roosevelt, and it says, "Comparison is the thief of joy." Right. And so many people have a tendency to compare their day one to other people's day 100. Right. And I think that's a huge mistake that prevents a lot of people from getting started. So when you look at industry leaders, a lot of people have a tendency to pick the most polarizing figures, the ones that have had the most success. But you've got to realize that they also started from scratch. And so when we were starting from scratch as a scrappy startup with 4 employees, it looked a lot different than it does now, right? Where I've got 35 employees here based in the US. I've got 200 developers in India. So it was a big process for moving up and moving on and basically reaching that next level. And the same thing happens is every new level you reach has its own unique problems, and those problems continue to grow and get bigger. So for me, it was just about starting small, staying grounded in what I know works at a foundational level, and then continuing to imitate that or mimic that across the different businesses that I was starting up. And so 5 sounds like a lot, but at the same time, going through and documenting those lessons learned, documenting what works and what doesn't, and building out frameworks and processes that you can continue to develop and use across those businesses makes it very easy. So setting up and launching a new business for me versus a brand new entrepreneur looks very different, right? Just because I've been there, I've done that, I know what works, and I know how to avoid a lot of those pitfalls that especially young entrepreneurs are going to ultimately face.
And let's come back to that in a moment, because I'd love to know if you have a blueprint for doing what you're doing. So we'll come back to that. What kind of, when you talk about priorities, you're doing it at night, is there any other tools that you're doing? What happens if you get that, all of a sudden that project or that person that takes you away from that priority? Talk to us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, and inevitably that's going to happen, right? Anytime you're running multiple businesses or anytime you're running a single business, the unforeseen circumstances that pop up in day-to-day business, they're going to ultimately shift your attention. And so for me, it's about time blocking, right? I go through and I say, hey, from this time to this time, I'm doing deep work in this company, right? I'm not one of those people that sits there and checks my email all day long. I'm not someone that will respond back to you in 5 minutes. And the reason is because I'm working. So I have to be extremely protective of my time and make sure that I am spending enough focus and energy in the right areas so that, again, I continue to move the needle and move things forward. And so it's not about tools. It's more about a mindset that I have adopted over time that has helped me, block out all the noise and really do deep work each and every day.
You mentioned the email. I mean, that's a common thing for a lot of people. That email throws them off.
Right. Right. So, and that's the thing. It's like most of the issues that you're going to source, unless you have employees that are busting into your office, most of the problems that you're going to source are going to be from email, right? It's going to be your colleagues, your coworkers, your clients, that are reaching out to you because of a problem or an issue or, downtime within your software. And so if you're looking at that all day, every day, you're constantly in the frame of mind of problem solving, right? Which means that I'm going to be reactive. I'm going to wait for the next email to arrive, then I'm going to address it. And then I'm going to try to start doing something else. And then I'm going to come back to it as soon as I get the next email, right? And so each time you do that, you're unknowingly losing focus, right? And so instead of that, there's a couple of tricks that I do use. Just for example, on my phone, setting the focus time on my phone so that I'm not taking calls from people that I'm not interested in entertaining while I am actually doing that deep work. And so that gives me extreme focus and clarity on what I'm doing. And that's the only way that I could run multiple companies at the same time, is by being extremely intentional about how I'm using my time and then guarding that time.
I love that. It's sometimes with the technology that we have now, I mean, I got my watch on, right? An email can come through and we know it, and then we feel that pressure.
Yes.
I love, there was something in college I learned on prioritization. It was at the quadrants. It has the urgent, important, and all those quadrants. Fantastic. I've loved that tool. And when I'm on top of my game, I'm definitely doing something like that.
Sure.
And I'm not always on top of my game. So sometimes I do get derailed.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. I'm very momentum driven, not just in my own business, in my personal life as well. So it's very easy to pick up steam and momentum when you get those quick wins, right? And that again is email is just something that I'm self-aware enough to know that email detracts from me being able to continue and sustain that momentum.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so talk to us about this blueprint. I mean, share with us whatever you're willing to share on how to quickly scale companies to $1 million. Teach us how to become millionaires in software companies or whatever type of companies we're listening to. And everybody else, take your pen out, get ready, pull over on the side. And this has worked several different times. And I know that Patrick helps other people with this. So Patrick, walk us through this.
Sure. So after building 5 successful companies in 5 years, I spent an inadequate amount of time actually going through and defining this process, recording it. And then I went back years later and did the same thing. It was kind of okay, let's make sure we get a brain dump on all this so that I could give people a framework that will ensure their growth. And so if you look at the statistics, 91% of all startups fail. Right. And that number to me just jumps out. It's huge. And the reason that it jumps out to me is because after successfully launching all these different ventures, I don't understand how people can fail at such a high rate. Right. And so I may be a little bit out of tune with the market, but I don't think that's the case. I think it is that people fail to do the deep work first. If you front load all of your effort on actually going through and validating the need for the product or service that you're looking at launching first, understanding and going extremely deep on defining your ideal customer profiles and your buyer personas, and then being aware of who your competitors are, you can avoid launching a company in the first place that is with extreme resistance or lack of demand. So just by doing the hard work up front, you can alleviate or mitigate, a huge amount of risk that goes along with starting a business. And so from there, it's really about unit economics, understanding, okay, if I'm going to get to that $1 million mark, right, it's going to be very difficult to do selling $19 digital products. If I'm looking at high ticket, I'm looking at $3,000 to $6,000 annual contract value, then it becomes much more attainable, right? You know exactly who those customers are, you know who's willing to pay for it, you know what problem it solves. And then it's just about delivering on your promise, ensuring that they're actually receiving the benefits of your value proposition. And from there, it makes it easy to capture case studies. It makes it easy to capture testimonials, success stories, all the things that are going to help you basically multiply the number of clients that you have, turn 1 into 10, 10 into 100, 100 into 1,000, et cetera, so that you can rapidly scale out your business through the social proof that you've collected and the feedback that you've collected from those people. So a lot of it goes to setting up your business the right way on the front end, making sure that your model is scalable, that you know who your customers are, and that you're not making assumptions about the industry. So if you get those things right, it becomes a lot less likely that you'll fail.
So when you're doing this, you're now doing this kind of almost intuition based on what you did or you figured it out. Is there, and people are going, okay, that that sounds easy, or maybe it sounds complex. Have you put this together in, I mean, I don't know if you do coaching or anything. Is there a process like do this? I mean, people are listening to this going, make it simple.
Yes. So we have a 7-step process that we use just for validating an idea, right? And that's part of a larger guaranteed to grow framework that we have, that basically takes you all the way from the ideation phase through to where you've actually built a product and are scaling it out, right? We're one of the only, if not the only, companies in the entire software development industry that actually offers a guarantee that your business will grow if it's a product that we're developing on, or if we are providing marketing and support for it, right? So we feel extremely confident, having done it a number of times, not just with our own products, but with over 100 client products and applications that we've launched and scaled, that we've gotten it down to a science, right? So that framework is basically a set of processes, a set of playbooks, and basically an overall blueprint for how to be successful in your business. And so I do offer coaching. I've got a ton of incredible entrepreneurs that I work with. I love the kind of intersection of business and innovation. That's where, my realm of genius really lies. So I'm really good at being able to analyze opportunities and to help people basically remove those barriers that they need to overcome in order to do what's next, and to hit that next level.
So there's that research aspect, the setting up, doing the deep work. A lot of people, I find, I mean, for me, I kind of happened into this entrepreneurial space, and it's been a fantastic get up, and it's been very interesting thing to do. And I have 3 companies as well, and it's been very interesting to go into. And for me, I mean, it was kind of happened into it because I was working in corporate sales, doing totally fine, and then ended up writing a book that ended up becoming more and more and more and more. So I understand a little bit of what you're talking about here, not in the software space, but I did a little bit backwards. I happened into it. I fell into it.
Okay.
Because the book grabbed a niche that I didn't even plan on. It was a hobby for me, and then it went full time. So I kind of happened into it. So it's interesting for you to look at it and go, okay, actually do the deep research, because you don't typically happen into something. Do that, understand your market, and the third company we started, definitely we did a lot more of that research, and let's look at what people need.
Sure.
Do you think there's a lot of people who are hoping for my kind of just fall into success story? I mean, realizing that I had 20 years of experience doing this, so it's not like I fell into it, but I fell into the success moment. Sure. What do you think? What is the main thing that's holding them back? Are they not doing the deep work in advance? Are they running before they're ready to run? What are the problems that people are having?
Yeah, so I think the top 3 problems, number 1 is people make assumptions, right? Just because you have an issue with within your industry, within the way that you operate and do business, does not mean that everyone else across the market does, right? Okay. And so when you make assumptions, you are basically introducing bias into the equation that could easily be prevented. And so if you actually go out and do that deep work, and you are interviewing customers, you're performing surveys and collecting feedback from within your target market, then you will come to know those customers, and that, more importantly, that customer base intimately, and you will understand, what drives the decision making. What are the huge pain points that actually need solving, and then that helps you create an offer to ultimately provide a solution.
Got it.
I think absolutely. I mean, most people fail by not doing the deep work first. Once you get past that, a lot of it is businesses are just undercapitalized, or the founding team, the leadership team steers them in the wrong direction. I mean, there's so many issues that can continually kind of rear their heads up, but you have to get through that first stage first to really understand what those even look like and how to deal with those when they come.
No, I was checking out some of your content, and of course, if you go on YouTube or a lot of places, the ads targeted at me are like sales funnels and websites, and I got websites and I have sales funnels, and yet I was looking at some of your content. You differentiate those from a flywheel. And now, when I think flywheel, I think of good to great, the flywheel going on. When you talk about flywheel, I'm sure there's an element of that, but how do you differentiate it from everything else that you do and from sales funnels and traditional websites?
So a website by design is more informational, right? So if you look at things from the initial kind of web 1.0, then going forward to web 2.0, web 3, where we are now, web 1 was really static informational sites, right? It was designed to tell you what a company does, what their mission is, who they serve. But if you look at a sales funnel, right, it's very result oriented, right? It's very focused on being able to achieve a desired result, right? Which is ultimately to capture the traffic that is coming across your website, convert them into leads, qualify those leads, move them through the funnel until the point of conversion, right? So it's different objectives, in terms of communicating who you are as a brand versus your actual marketing activities that will lead you to growing and scaling a business. And so in terms of a flywheel is a little bit different. It's kind of the new iteration or the new evolution of your actual sales funnel, right? And that goes across with partnerships with other companies, understanding who can receive value from what you do, and then understanding what the different channels or initiatives are that you can feed to your business that will help you basically unlock new levers of growth. So from a flywheel, if you're looking at your business through the lens of a flywheel, right? And for people that don't know, a flywheel is basically a mechanical device that takes a lot of energy or inertia in order to get started. But once it builds that momentum, it's extremely difficult to stop, right? So you continue to feed it with all these different initiatives, right? As a young business, this may be adding in cold email, outbound sales processes for cold calling or for lead generation, all these different new initiatives. And every time you are feeding it, it continues to move things forward, right? You continue to generate leads from new channels, and you're able to basically test and iterate through those extremely quickly, right? Based on the feedback that you're getting. And so it's kind of the next generation where it has that compounding effect that people are so used to linking towards finance, right? But the same thing is true within your business, right? Over time, the more initiatives that you feed it, the more momentum that you can build, and the more that those play into each other, right? So that's why when you talk about having a sound content strategy, the reason that a content strategy is so important is because that content can live forever. You can create evergreen content. And then it also can speak to all the different phases of the buyer journey. So you're going from problem aware to solution aware, right? Creating content, serving it up to people at different levels of that funnel. Then you're going to product aware, price aware, and ultimately the point of conversion. And so being able to create content that kind of moves people through that wherever they are, extremely valuable. And so all these different initiatives, the goal is to continue moving the ball forward and to test what works rapidly, to kill what doesn't, and to continue promoting and doubling down on the things that do.
What is one of the flywheels that you're running for one of your companies?
Sure. So for Spring, which is one of the venture-backed companies that we run, in addition to the traditional service that we provide as a software, we also provide a mastermind program for that. So it's something that, we have a lot of health and wellness professionals that don't know how to build a business. They don't know anything about the technical side of it, whether that's anything from SEO or from running paid ads, for example, in order to drive leads on social media or through advertising. They don't understand the concepts of email marketing or any of the other different growth initiatives that you can have. And so basically we are providing them with standard operating procedures for a lot of that stuff. And we're providing them with real world examples of how they can grow. We do process audits and things like that so that they can basically learn how to build a better business, right? And so that flywheel, in addition to helping us attract customers through differentiation, because there's no other company that does that within that space, it also gives us the opportunity to create expansion revenue, because now these people are coming to us, they're like, hey, I need a landing page, or I need a website, I need a sales funnel, I need SEO. I need all these other services from a marketing perspective that you guys provide. And so it's the same kind of, DIY, DFY done for you, and fully managed type of environment where, we provide access to all three, obviously just at different price points. And so that's a great way that, great example I can give of creating a flywheel in your business, right? Just understanding how you can add value, or value added services, and then looking for opportunities to continue to grow through upselling, cross-selling, cross-promoting, et cetera.
What's the difference between looking at a flywheel to keep the company growing and looking at the lifetime value of a single customer that might come in?
Sure. So the whole purpose of the flywheel is to increase that lifetime value, right? So it's understanding how I can provide other value added services to them in order to increase that LTV, and also to help move them forward. And so this business that I was telling you about, Spring, for example, is based, the entire pricing model is based on the client's ability to grow their business, right? So we have aligned our model. We earn a per user, per seat cost that is lower, and the more that they grow, the more money we make. And so we are incentivized, and our interests are aligned to help them grow. Yeah. And so that is a great model, I think, to do business. And it's one of those things where you have skin in the game as well as your clients. And if you're able to perform at a high level and grow out their business, then you both profit from it equally. So it's good.
Okay, so let's move over to a different topic, because you keep on hitting on venture capital, and I know that you're in the NFT space and such. So let's just take a moment to talk about investing. And this is something that you're looking at, and you're involved in. So say you got a manager, you got someone out there, and they're listening to this. They're trying to advance their career, advance their life. Talk to us just a little bit. I know it was really part of the plan here, but let's just go into investing a little bit. What's your thoughts?
It's one of those things, everyone has their own take on it. So not giving financial advice, but what I do.
Yeah, that's what we want to know what you do.
Yeah. So you're always going to have certain tried and true avenues for basically generating a return. Real estate over time, always going to traditionally outperform the market. What people really want to hear about, and I'm sure this is what you want to hear about as well, is how do cryptocurrencies and how do NFTs play into the equation now that they are emerging asset classes. It's one of the highest growth asset classes that we've had, especially in modern history. And the reason is primarily the hype and frenzy around it that was part of the initial days when you started hearing stories about people becoming overnight millionaires and in some cases billionaires from cryptocurrency. It's one of those headlines that just, ultimately grabs your attention. I'm heavily invested in NFTs and cryptocurrencies. I'm extremely selective in the ones that I actually invest into. There recently, as you may or may not be aware, there was a big crypto crash, as they call it. But this is something that historically happens every few years or so, where you'll have a huge regression or drawdown in the market cap of these companies, and you'll have a large amount of investors that pull out and basically you're able to kind of manipulate the market. So I think what we're seeing right now is really what I call the great shakening, right? It's similar to back in early 2000s, kind of turn of the century, where you had the dot-com bubble, where you're going to end up with a few companies or a few currencies, cryptocurrencies, that are going to be around for the long term. Those are the ones that provide a maximum amount of value and utility. Those are primarily your top 10 coins by market cap. And so those are the ones that I think will be around long term. But I think the majority of them, there's over 10,000 now, fall off the face of the earth and go to zero. And so, it's extremely risky right now just because of the existing climate and kind of the economic downturn. It's a great buying opportunity. You had Bitcoin up by almost at 70,000 at the all-time high. I think it was 66, almost 67,000. It's down at 20,000. That's one that over the next 3 to 5 years, it's going to go back to that historical high, if not surpassing it. So, again, there's so much being done around Web3 and around NFTs and around cryptocurrency that user adoption still has not caught up with the innovation. And if you look at things like the creation of the automobile, right? The invention of the automobile, the manufacturing of the first vehicle. From the time that the first vehicle was manufactured, it took almost 50 years to reach public mass adoption. And so if you look at other innovations like the internet, for example, it took another 25 years for the internet to be commonplace and achieve mass adoption. So what we're seeing here is those adoption cycles get much shorter. And so we're still extremely early on within the process, but I think it's going to be commonplace and tied into part of everyday finance and so many different other applications here in the next decade. And so obviously a lot of barriers that have to be overcome, but in my mind, it's a certainty.
I just that was really interesting because I was reading your profile, right, and I knew that you were involved in NFTs and blockchain and such. So it's interesting to see, especially since it looks like you're a guy who's got a diversified portfolio. You got your real estate stuff going on there. You got your, and this is really why I thought about investment. I mean, you're basically investing in startups, backing startups, owning startups that, yeah, you run, but eventually you sell off, and that's a great investment. So I was wondering how much you were diversifying when, I mean, you're really invested hands-on in the startup space.
Sure. I mean, most of it, and again, if it's technology, if it's business, I'm there. Keeping up with the latest in trends is something I have to do. Understanding what innovations are hitting the market, what the market is expected to do, everything from AR, VR, MR, you name it. Becoming intimately familiar with those technologies and how they can impact the existing operating environment, and also what opportunities exist as a result. Yeah. Those are all things that I am passionate about and stay up to date on. But of course, there's still the old tried and true index funds and all the other fun stuff that you got to have your safe plays while also going and realizing that, hey, if and when I retire, it's going to be however long from now. I've got a lot of time to really focus on high growth investing.
Yeah, fun. But that's a whole different conversation, but I'm glad at least to touch into it. Hey, is there anything else that you just want to leave the audience with today? You say, hey, to advance, I want you to think about this.
Yeah, the biggest thing, and I hear this advice so often from leaders and from influencers and a number of other well-known people. They always say the trick is to just get started. And I hate that advice because to get started, you need a vision, you need a plan, right? So again, you're asking someone to kind of jump into the middle of something just to be in the habit of doing, but you still need to have that foundational understanding of what it is that you're trying to achieve, who it is that you're trying to serve, who your audience is, so that you can go out and actually attack the market. So before you just start, understand what you're starting. Spend time doing the deep work. So many challenges, so many problems can be avoided, not just in your professional career, but in your personal career as well, just by taking the time to do the research and to focus on those activities.
I think that's a great insight, because I shared my entrepreneurial story with you. In some ways, I just started. Now it was a side hobby for me. So it's quite literally like my extra time I'm doing the stuff. I'm just doing it for fun. And I didn't have a vision. I wasn't planning on becoming, like, nowadays I have executive communication clients around the world that are who's who. And I have books that are being sold and TEDx booked, all kinds of stuff. But I had to go back because I started and then had to think, what am I doing? And I literally had to go backwards and create systems because I didn't have any.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so I'm not saying spend all your time investing in and building the systems up front, right? And in your case, your story is a little different, just similar to how mine was. I had an existing career. I had my financials and everything covered. There was less risk when I started it because I started as a hustle too. Yeah. But I mean, for people, I see a lot of people that just go quit their job because they want to do something. It's right. Like, you've got to evaluate some of those life choices and in advance, but even for you, you didn't start from scratch. You started from experience, right? You had that 20 years of experience that kind of led you to that point. So a lot of the challenges that I'm sure you faced in your business, you'd already been familiar with from your professional career. And then even going back and just jumping into it, it's like, okay, hey, I wrote a book and now I'm starting to get all this attention and it's growing from here. I'm going to jump into coaching because it's a logical progression. Those things, again, it's very different from someone starting out and just saying, okay, I don't have any experience as an entrepreneur. A lot of times you have people that don't even have experience, managing other people or running a business.
Yeah.
From that perspective, it's a dangerous bit of advice.
I love doing it as a side hustle. I think
I do too.
and then building it from there. I interviewed a guy from Diesel Laptops not too long ago, and it was very interesting. I mean, he did this as a side hustle. And I think it teaches grit, it teaches determination, it teaches time management because you're doing it on the side. It teaches a lot of these different things and passion. Like if you don't like it, get out.
Exactly. And there's always that kind of safety net, which, is a double-edged sword in itself, because you have some people that have the mindset of, oh, hey, if this doesn't work, and they plan for it not to work, versus I'm going to do whatever it takes in my free time to actually make this work. And so I think a lot of that goes back to mindset, but you're absolutely right. I mean, I would tell clients all the time, like, hey, don't quit your day job. Like, let's move forward. Let's understand how you can make the time and identify things that you can eliminate in order to kind of get this rolling. And then once it's there, once you can afford to replace your salary or the majority of your salary or what it takes you to be comfortable or your family to be comfortable in a lot of cases, then it's time to step away and start focusing on that solely.
That's fantastic. Patrick, this has been great. Hey, where can people find you? Where can people find out about your podcast coming up?
Absolutely. You can find me on LinkedIn, Instagram, pretty much anywhere where you consume content already. I've got a podcast launching next month called Guaranteed to Grow. It'll be basically walking people through end to end how to start, how to scale a software company. And so definitely check me out there. Also do a lot of coaching for young entrepreneurs that want to make sure that they get it right out of the gate. Basically just helping to de-risk all the startup activities that come along with running a business.
Where's the website for that?
SaaSpartners.io, SaaS partners.io. Check me out there. You can click on the Guaranteed to Grow tab and see everything from coaching services to applications to actually be part of that program where we ensure growth in our clients' companies.
That's great. Well, thank you, Patrick. And we'll put all of those in show notes and on YouTube. But really great. Thanks so much for being on the show today.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me, Mike. It's been a pleasure.
And to all of our listeners and our viewers, thank you so much for taking time to check this out. Make sure you like, subscribe, comment, and share. Check out the show notes and all the different places that Patrick just talked about. Until next time, it's been Mike Acker with Advance.
Thanks for listening to Advance with Mike Acker, a podcast designed to provide an edge for leaders through improving practical leadership skills and increasing confidence in speaking. Mike is a best-selling author and business owner who has helped many leaders increase their skills and their confidence, propelling them to new heights in their personal and professional endeavors. Join an incredible group of professionals taking the steps to become better leaders at connect.stepstoadvance.com. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe so you never miss an episode.